and welcome back. This is our second lesson plan, and here we're going to be talking about a Cinquain and incorporating gestures to retell the Cinquain. So here goes. The whole goal here, create a Cinquain and model it with gestures. To get started here, for the opening of this lesson, again, I'm using some brain gym strategies. If you're interested in that, you can always look up brain gym online. There are quite a few books on it that have a bunch of strategies and ideas for incorporating that. What I'll start off with, basically a refocusing tool. These are called hookups. The way a hookup works is I'll start off with hookup A. Somewhat more challenging. I would cross my legs. After I cross my legs, I'd outstretch my hands, cross them, pull them in, and as my hands are here, I'm simply going to take a deep breath in, hold it, and let it out, and repeat that 2 more times. Okay, so that's hookup A. Cross legs, cross arms. Basically, we're crossing the midline, so we're using both portions of the brain, both hemispheres, so to say. Next hookup, hookup B. This is my favorite one. Put 2 feet together, simply 2 feet together. Put 2 hands together, just like this, right in front of you. Take a deep breath in. Let it out silently. Take a deep breath in. This is my favorite. On the second one, make a funny sound out. Take a deep breath in again. Let it out silently. And the idea here is to refocus our students. They always love making the funny sound. Sometimes they'll prolong it, but right after that, move into it with the silent one. Maybe go one more round after that, and the idea here is we're refocusing students. With the funny sound, you're kind of energizing them, you're giving them a slight outlet. From there, as I was getting into more of the opening with the lesson, start off with hookups A, hookup B, hookups A and B, excuse me. From there, I move into Simon Says to teach any vocabulary that's associated with the lesson for the day. I might say something like, Simon says, show me the sign for mountain, and students would do this. Simon says, show me the sign for dialogue, and students would do this, or characters and do this. Simon says, show me the sign for mingle, and students would do this as if they were mingling around the classroom. Basically, that's the idea of using Simon Says. Here's another strategy that I want to talk about. This one's not mentioned in the lesson plan. Basically, one thing I utilize highly in my classroom is the idea of incorporating sign language. So rather than using my voice all the time, I have a bunch of random sounds that I'll use, and I'm huge on sign language. The way sign language works, I'll start off by teaching you 3 really big ones that I use on a regular basis. This is kind of like a house sign. It's something I came up with. For everyone, this is sit down. 2 fingers like this, right over each other, simply going down. Everyone, sit down. Here's another one. Everyone, stand. 2 legs, simply stand. And oftentimes I use those as I'm getting into movement. It also gives me the opportunity to save my voice a little bit. Okay, so say you want more sign language stuff. Here are a few more. Water. Instead of my students raising their hand, hey, Mr. Revlo, could I go get some water, please? I'm thirsty and this lesson is very boring. Simply, again, it's kind of like 3 fingers outstretched, a W straight to the mouth. Water. Hey, I know right away I don't even really say, hey, go. I just simply, if you wanted to use the sign language for yes and no, of course you could say yes or no. Other areas for sign language that I use include this is in sign language the letter I for I have a question. I use the C in sign language for I have a comment. I use the A in sign language for I have the answer. Those are some of Rick Morris's ideas, but I've incorporated a few more there for you. So sign language used on a regular basis, another kind of movement thing, but more on the teacher's end. From there, moving into our lesson, I'll start off with the game 4 corners. 4 corners. Basically, in your classroom, there are 4 corners, hopefully. Corner 1, corner 2, corner 3, corner 4. Simple, or you can move the numbers around to however you like. No big deal. what I would do is the game Four Corners, I often utilize it for maybe finding information out from students or getting some type of an answer. Simple. Class, what's your favorite type of pet? Do you like cats? Go to corner 1. Dogs, corner 2. Fish, corner 3. Birds, corner 4. And they would move to whichever corner they like best. Say you're using comics. Maybe class, if you have incorporated onomatopoeia in your comic, go to corner 1. If you have not, go to corner 2. And I'd simply head on over real quick, talk to those students in corner 2. That's basically Four Corners. You can use it for more multiple choice questions, makes it really easy to get a response. From the Four Corners, I'd move into basically reading some type of selection out of an anthology, a history book, a science book, no big deal, literature. And I teach my students the concept of a cinquain. Cinquain is basically a type of poem that consists of 5 lines. Basically, there's a pattern to it. The pattern is 1. First line, there's 1 word. Second line, there are 2 words. Third line, there are 3 words. Fourth line, there are 2 words. And on the 5th line, there's 1 word. So the pattern is simply 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. I'll give you an example of a cinquain I wrote, just something right off the bat, kind of based on a scary story. Mountain, dark clouds, bad signs, ominous, moving, creeping, silence. It's basically a cinquain. Okay, now, how do I take the idea of a cinquain and incorporate movement or kinesthetic learning here? The idea, first, review a cinquain. Second, add a gesture to it. Maybe your gesture for the cinquain could be mountain, dark clouds, bad sign, ominous, moving, creeping, silence. And now not only is your student telling the cinquain verbally, but they're also telling the cinquain physically with their body through the movements that they're creating. What I like to do here with a higher grade level, you can definitely have those guys or girls create their own cinquain, create their own movements for it. They don't need to be in a group. With lower grades, I kind of like to have them pair up, and I use this idea for like tons of problems I have in class. Whenever 2 kids are arguing over some idea or something that they may want, simple, rock, paper, scissors game. And from there, the winner decides which cinquain that they're presenting. Something to emphasize, you want to make your partner look good. Something I always emphasize there. After you give your students time to create their cinquain, time to add the gesture to it, they've played the mingle game, they've practiced a little bit with their partner, I go right before the performance again, typical protocol. They clap back twice. They're all in a state of silence now, and they've kind of come to a frozen position where they're all quiet, they're all listening, they're attentive. From here, basically, on ready, set, go, they're all going to be performing their cinquains with movement. So I'd simply say, performers at the ready, and they'd kind of be ready here in their neutral state. Set, go! They'd begin telling their cinquain with the gesture in partners. A few ideas for you. One partner could simply read it, the other partner could act it out. What many of my students like to do is both people will read it and act it at the same time. Oftentimes, because of the shortness of it, though they tend to memorize it, it's not something that's very difficult. To make this cinquain more challenging, you could say, okay, your cinquain has to consist of all adjectives, or it has to consist of entirely of nouns, or entirely of adjectives or adverbs. So make this very challenging. Adverbs may not work. We'll stick with adjectives, nouns, verbs, easy. So from there, have them create it. Remember, the more you change this and the more you change it to, say, for example, instead of using nouns or having it open, say you're making it verbs, your students then have to think more, and they get into higher order thinking because of that. Say I was using all adjectives, then my students are definitely going to be thinking harder because the project in general is more complex. So you can take this general easy idea and make it more complex by limiting the type of word they're using. From there, I'd move into closure again, go through that typical practice round, do the clap, get everyone ready. As they're ready, set, go, they all perform one time, take a seat class. As they're seated, call each group up for the performance. As I have a group up for the performance, they're at the ready. Everyone in class, I simply review the rules with them. You know, guys, during performances, we want everyone listening. I know you have other ideas, and a lot of you guys are working on your presentation still, but in transition, if you wanted to work on it, that's cool, no problem, okay. From there, a little bit about a comic connection. How can you integrate all of these ideas within a comic? Say you're reading a comic, for example, all of these would suffice perfectly fine. But say you want to change it. Okay, I'm working on the comic experience. I open it with a hookup. I use hookups A, hookups B. From there, I move into Simon Says to teach any vocabulary that's related with the general comic lesson. From there, I move into Four Corners to find out basically what their comics are about. Hey, if your comic's all about action, go to corner 1. Comedy, corner 2, drama, corner 3, stuff like that, just finding out information. From there, if you wanted a cool idea for the comic, incorporating comics and Cinquains, would be to have your students create a Cinquain and put that on the cover of the comic. And I had several of my students do that, and they were really surprised when comparing it with others. Just something kind of different. And that's basically the second lesson on the Cinquain with gestures. Thank you very much again for tuning in, and I hope you've learned a few things. Thanks. See you soon.